Man, a container. A container is a device or a thing for holding a substance within it. All containers have a hollow cavity or space within them for a place to put the substance. Containers come in a variety of shapes as sizes. Example, a glass is a container to hold liquids. We believers are a type of container. We were originally designed and created to hold a substance. That substance is God himself. Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 7, "But we have this treasure in earthen vessels." We are the earthen vessels and Christ is the treasure and substance within us. This is another proof text that shows us that man was created incomplete, with an empty void, just as all containers have an empty space or cavity for the substance to be placed within it. Man has always been a container and has always carried a substance within him. The substance in this case is indwelling spirit nature. Paul shows us the contrast in 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 14 to 16. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? What does a believer have in common with unbeliever? What agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? For we are the temple of the living God. The contrast he is bringing is the difference between believers and unbelievers. He says that the main difference between the two is the substance within them. Now we are the containers of righteousness, light, and Christ, for he is the light, life, nature, righteousness, and God within us. The substance over the container. We must also be reminded that the most important part between the container and the substance is the substance within. Just as if we have a bottle or glass of Coke, the Coke is the most important, whether in bottle or glass is secondary. The same with us. All believers have a variety shapes and colors of containers. There are fat people, short people, and strong people. There are black people, brown people, and white people. These are only the shapes and colors of the container and does not necessarily reflect on the substance at all. We should never look at nor judge a brother or anyone for that fact, according to the shape, color, or ability of the container. That is why Paul exhorted the Corinthian church to no longer know or look at one another after the flesh. Rather, we need to see one another even as God sees us, according to the treasure within the container. The exchange. The miracle that took place when we became born again was an exchange of substance within us. God supernaturally and invisibly emptied out the old unrighteous sin-natured substance out of our container and exchanged it with a total new, pure, holy, righteous, divine substance. This is what happened during the regeneration process of our new birth. It was as if he emptied a glass full of black coffee and poured crystal clear and purified water back into the glass. We now have the crystal clear living water of Christ within us. Man is not his own, and you are not your own, for you are bought with a price. This verse literally means that man is not the owner of himself. He is and always was owned by and possessed by another. As an unbeliever, man is owned by Satan. Now, as a believer, we are the property of God. God now owns us and dwells within us. This verse further goes on to say that we have been bought with a price. God bought us and paid for us with the precious blood of the Lamb. He paid the supreme price for you and I. The price he paid for us becomes even greater when you think of how much we were worth. If we look at our spiritual condition before we were saved, we would see that we are lost in sin, bondage, darkness, and even enemies of God. We had absolutely no worth or value. But because of God's great love for us, He paid the highest price He could pay. He gave His Son as a sacrifice and payment for us. It would have been easy for God if He had used money to pay for us. He could have easily created $1 billion at the snap of His fingers, but that really wouldn't have cost Him anything compared to the actual cost of giving up His Son to become sin and be crucified on the cross. This was the supreme price God paid for you and I. We do not own ourselves and therefore cannot legally sell ourselves. God, being legal owner, holds the title's deed of our lives. He alone determines the final say and outcome of our lives. This, of course, does not mean we don't have choices and that we are not responsible of our choices. Rather, it means that even though He gives us certain choices in life, all things must pass by His desk for His final approval, both good and bad. The price He paid for us also shows us the value we now have toward God. God put His most priceless treasure in us, and because of His treasure, we are now worth much to God. He has literally invested His life for and in us. Therefore, we can have an absolute trust and assurance that God will take care of those that He owns. To God be the glory. God bless you.